My name's Ketch DeGabrielle. I've been at Los Suenos Farms since last September. Right now, as it sits, I'm quite certain we're the largest recreational cultivation facility in the world. Our primary grow is outdoors, so our cash crop and what we really rely on at the farm is harvested in October and November. I came on board to start trying to figure out how we were going to deal with 15,000 plants in 3 weeks. So my primary function here is systems and procedures for harvesting and supporting the cultivation of these plants after they're grown. That being said, we don't have the luxury of taking a few plants down every week and processing them and figuring out how to deal with it. You've got 3 weeks to take down all the plants and figure out how to deal with it. So I didn't really get here in time enough to come up with a clever system before we had to harvest our first field harvest, but we've come a long way since then, and we're working on coming up with better ways to harvest all the time. So in improving, a lot of it's been facilities. We now have a greenhouse that we can grow in. Part of our problem, we realized after our October harvest was, we have to keep a staff, we have to keep them trained, we have to keep them employed. We can't lay off our employees when we're done growing outside. So these greenhouses, in addition to being a source of revenue, is a way to keep all our employees around year long. We also need an office. We have to have proper media for our sales to have, how we package product, how we distribute it. It's evolving constantly. We've by no means figured it out yet. There certainly is some pressure. I'm not so much concerned on growing our company in size as much as I'm concerned with growing our base of knowledge so that we can do what we do now better. It's always nice to grow and expand, but right now there's too many unanswered questions to get any bigger without figuring out more things. Trimming is definitely an issue for us, as it is for every grower. You really don't want an army of people around with scissors. One, it takes forever. Two, they call in sick. Three, product sometimes goes missing. And we definitely still have people that we bring in just for harvest to kind of staff up. But trimming is a huge part of it. And when we started this, we tried every trimmer there was. We did not skip one. We tried every single trimmer we could find: wet trim, dry trim. On our scale, wet trim is not an option. It 100% will not work. There's no possible way that you can take down an entire field with over 3,000 plants in it and trim them all when they're wet. It just won't happen. So we do dry trim. We have these greenhouses, and we're in the process of building some drying houses, and it allows us to really control how tightly our product dries. And what we found is if we catch the plants at just the right moisture content, where the outside leaves are crispy, but the buds are around 9, 10, or 11% moisture content, they trim so incredibly well in the GreenBroz machines that there's no need to even look anywhere else for another way to trim. They just work fantastic. We clean them between every harvest batch, so they're not a big deal to break down and clean out with isopropyl alcohol. They're really simple. There's not very many moving parts. There's nothing to break. There's a single motor in them that there's plenty of them in California. We've never had one malfunction, but the parts get here in like a day or two if we need them. Because on our scale, once again, we do burn through blades, and we've definitely maybe put a rock in a machine before, and they're not meant to trim rocks, so things happen. But GreenBroz is on it when it comes to getting us replacement parts, and it keeps us in business and processing as we need to. Last year, we estimate we saved over $1 million using the GreenBroz trimmers, and not to mention the time that we would have had to keep our product before we could get around to trimming it. So it is a massive financial benefit for us. We have the large machines, and when we purchased them, they were around $10,000 a piece, and they paid for themselves the first 2 days. If I could do the same thing over again, I'd have done the same thing, but probably bought a few more. We have 6 of them on this farm. And we have over 15,000 plants, and those 6 are all we need to do everything we do. So different strains do trim differently. Like Indiana Bubblegum is probably the most dense strain we have of the 60 strains we cultivate. And it trims extremely well. I mean, you put it in there for 2 minutes and it's done. But you know, those are all great big colas that are extremely dense. And the bud maintains moisture while the outer leaves just get crispy really quickly. So they trim really nicely. Our production rate in pounds from last year versus this year is a touchy subject, and it's something people ask a lot, especially the owners of the company, you know, want to know how we're going to improve and how we're going to produce more. I really try not to count my eggs before they hatch, because you never know when a hailstorm is going to come and take out half of your outdoor crop. We experimented with several different cultivation methods in the last outdoor growing season, and we of course plan to apply those to this year's planting. So if all the plants survive and if they function as they did last year, we could easily see our yields increase by 1/3. There's no book written on how to do this on this scale successfully. So I'd say our biggest challenge is, one, just figuring out the systems and procedures we need to become successful, and then also to do our very best to comply with all the laws and be as transparent as possible. You know, always be on top of all the rules. Where I see our future going is really setting the standard on what an efficient, healthy grow looks like. We want to be the safest in the industry, and as far as, you know, not having any pesticides on our product, and also not having any harmful molds or anything else, of course. So we really want to be a learning center for other people to look to. So my favorite strain, well, I have a couple favorite strains on the farm for different reasons. My favorite for cultivation purposes and the yields we get is Indiana Bubblegum. It's also my favorite smoke before bed. It's a really nice, heavy indica, and it is by far the most dense bud on the farm. Also like Hashberry a lot. It's got a very floral aroma and it's really nice. And then K2 is also quite nice. But if I had to pick one favorite, it would be Indiana Bubblegum.